Hello everybody and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, where today we're doing something a bit different. Throughout all the content I've done over the PlayStation version of the sim, I've had a lot of recommendations and requests to do a video covering all the controls and keybinds that are default to the sim, and that's exactly what we're doing today. So alongside of me showing you visually in the sim, we also have the controller being recorded, so you can see what buttons I'm pushing and where I'm pushing them. So very excited to do this. I've actually learned a few more keybinds myself that I'll be using quite a bit. So in the description, I have the full list of everything I'm going to be going through in this video. So if you want to save it and keep it for future reference, once the sim is available, you can go ahead and do that. So without further ado, let's dive on in to the keybinds of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 on the PlayStation 5. So obviously, first things first, the left stick is your movement. It's also going to be your flight controls. We'll go through that again once we're inside the plane. The right stick is your camera, and that's going to be the same case no matter if you're an external camera, walk around, showcase camera, anything of the sort. And then the other thing outside and walk around is going to be square. That'll let you crouch, which is going to be quite helpful on some planes, especially if they have a low wing height. If you need to crouch, get some covers off, or anything like that. But yeah, other than that, that's really all you need to know about regarding the walk-around mode. And of course, you can already see the other keybind on the screen there with L1 and circle. That is how you both enter and exit the aircraft. So we're going to hold L1 here, hit circle, and that'll bring us into the aircraft. So now that we're in here, we can dive into the other buttons and what they do. So left on the D-pad does not do anything in free flight, but in career mode, this is your quick toggle to talk to ATC. So I'll have some footage going on so you can see that in action, but anytime you're in career mode and you're needing to talk to ATC for taxiing or IFR clearance, changing state, changing all the towers and stuff like that, that's going to be your helpful friend. Because instead of you always having to do this and going into communications tab, it's just a much easier way of keeping in tabs with ATC without having extra steps. So again, that's left on the D-pad for that in career mode. And next up we have right on the D-pad, which is your gear toggle, which you can raise and lower the gears. Obviously not every plane has retractable gears, but just in case you do, all you need to do is push the right on the D-pad. Next up, we have up and down on the D-pad, which down on the D-pad lowers the flaps by a notch every time you push it. Push it one more time, we have full flaps, and then of course up on the D-pad does the opposite. It raises the flaps. Moving over to the right side of the controller, we have triangle, which triangle is another one that's really only there for career mode. It doesn't really do anything for you in free flight. So in career mode, when you're doing the spraying missions, scooping up water for firefighting, lowering the hook for aerial advertising, and toggling smoke if you're in an extra 300 or another one of those aerobatic aircraft. So okay, the smoke is for, of course, free flight, but primarily triangle is going to be used for those mission toggles for firefighting, lowering the hook, stuff like that. Moving down to X, you'll see as we tap it, we're slowly increasing our throttle. If you hold the button, it'll also move just like that. Circle is decreasing your throttle, so if we tap that, you can see our throttle is going back down, and holding circle again decreases that throttle. And lastly, on the right side of the controller, we have square, which if we press and hold this, you'll see that we are pressing down on our brakes. And then, of course, letting go of it, you're no longer holding on to the brakes. So again, the left analog stick is your controls for your aircraft. Hi, it's me from 2 in the morning while editing this. I realized I forgot another thing with the left stick. If you click the left stick, you can disable and enable the visual aids, which is taxi ribbon, the flight path in the sky, and everything like that. So here's the taxi ribbon and the hold short waypoint going in and out. And then in the air, you can see we're turning off the visual aid for the flight path. So this is a really handy thing, especially if you're new to the sim. I highly recommend turning on these 3 settings. And in case you're wondering how to turn that on, here's a little quick guide for you. You hit pause, go to settings, and then assistances, and then you scroll down the screen just a little bit down to the visual assistance, where you turn on taxi ribbon, flight path, and display active waypoint marker, and again, left-clicking the stick can toggle it on and off. The right stick, just like it is in walk around, is to use the camera and move that around. And then with the right stick again, if you're ever needing to quickly recenter your camera, you can right-click on the right stick, and it will always reset your camera to the default position in the cockpit, as well as the external view. So if you ever need to get a quick camera reset, just right-click stick, and it'll reset your camera to default. And while we're here at this default screen, your triggers, left and right, of course, control your rudder. So whenever you're taxiing, this is how you're turning left and right. And then if you're in a heavy crosswind and you need a little bit of rudder going on, that's how you control those. The other use of the triggers is when you're in the EFB, you can use left trigger to zoom out, and then right trigger to zoom in. And we've already done this a couple times, but the touchpad is used to switch between cockpit camera and external camera. So you just tap anywhere, or just push the touchpad, I should say, not tap it. But yep, you just press the touchpad and you move between the two cameras. The other use for the touchpad is if you were in drone camera or showcase camera and you wanted to quickly get back into the regular camera positions, you just tap this again and you'll move into cockpit camera or external camera. Alright folks, we've gone through step 1, showcasing what the individual button does on its own. Now we're going to move on to R1 and L1, the bumpers, because these are where most of your extra keybinds are going to come through, which you'll see how much those actually do for you. So before we do anything else, if you hit both R1 and L1 at the same time, we go into photo mode, which photo mode is pretty much showcase camera, just with the grid and the buttons that you can utilize on the screen. So, you know, R2, L2 to change focus, R1 and L1 to change exposure, triangle and the triggers to increase and decrease the zoom, and all that good stuff. We're going to dive into a little bit more of that later on. I'm not too worried about it, just wanted to kind of showcase the photo mode toggle, which again is R1 and L1 at the same time. So to start things off for our combination buttons, we are going to be starting with R1. So all these buttons that we're going to be pushing here, we're going to be holding R1 and then pushing whatever buttons we're going through. So to start things off, we're doing R1 and left stick click. So again, holding R1 and then left click on the stick, it'll turn cursor mode on, which this is how you're going to be able to get to the toolbar, which of course has pause, the EFB or electronic flight bag, camera settings, controller settings, weather, communications, so ATC and all that, mission steps, which in free flight you don't have to worry about, but that's the toggle for if you're in career mode and you're wanting to see what the next objective is. Flight control replay. Next up for us in the R1 section is R1 and circle. And what you just saw there is a quick way of getting between the detents. And what those are is, right now if the engines were on, we would be in full reverse thrust. And some planes make it to where if you just hold circle, it'll automatically go into it. Other planes, it'll stop at a certain point. So let's just say, for example, we just finished landing, we're about halfway on our throttle. We're going to bring this back to idle, and then at this point, we wouldn't be able to do anything else with circle. So if we want to engage reverse thrust, we will hit R1 and circle. And there we go. We're in reverse thrust, full reverse going on. And then once we're done with that, we would get to this point. We're not fully out of reverse yet. We've just got to the detent where it's just like, okay, now we need to hit R1 and X to bring that over into that mode. And then we have full regular thrust back in our engine. So again, R1 and circle to detent backwards or lower the speeds or go into reverse thrust, which you can see there. And then to do the opposite, to gain power and get out of reverse thrust, you'll do R1 and X. And there we go. Simple as that. And that's of course how you engage and disengage reverse thrust. Next we have R1 and triangle, which is engaging your speed brakes, and then of course R1 and triangle again to disengage the speed brakes. That's the nice thing about these L1 and R1 buttons. Most of them are toggles, so instead of having to have a whole separate thing, the same button you're pushing to toggle them, you can also turn them off using the same button. So again, R1 and triangle to toggle your speed brakes on, and then put them back into the wing by pressing the same button of R1 and triangle. So just like square is your regular braking, to disengage or engage your parking brake, you'll do R1 and square, and now you're ready to roll. So just keep that in mind. If your plane isn't moving, even though you've put in a bunch of power, it's probably your parking brake still being engaged. So again, R1 and square. The next one for R1 is with the right stick. So if we bring the stick down, you'll notice our nose is pitching up. If we keep holding R1 and move the stick forward, you'll notice our nose is pitching down. This is our quick trim. So if you're ever needing to level out your aircraft, that's how you can do it nice and fast. You can of course do it inside the cockpit as well, but if you're not in the mood for that, just R1 and up and down on the stick, and then you can get it nice and level. So there we go, that'll complete the square, triangle, circle, and X side with R1. Now we're going to move over to the R1 plus D-pad buttons, and as you can see we changed up the plane, that way it's not the same thing the whole time we're doing the video. But anyways, to start things off, we will do R1 and up on the D-pad, which that is your autopilot disengage, which that's kind of cool. It was a new one that I didn't even know was a thing. I'm going to be honest, probably not something I'm going to use. I'm so used to just popping over here and then turning off autopilot through the buttons in the cockpit. So not something too crazy, but thought I would mention it regardless. Next up we have R1 and down on the D-pad, which this is your quick start. There was a bit of a delay in there, I wasn't expecting it, but... So, if you're not in the mood to do cold and dark starts, again, you can do cold and dark starts with every aircraft in the sim. There's full checklists and all that good stuff, but if for whatever reason you're not in the mood... Oh, okay, before we do that, it's always good to keep in mind to finish your walk-around checks, or else the plane's not going to start right, so... Goodness gracious. Alright, let's try that again. Perfect. Now it'll start up properly. So, if you're not in the mood to do cold and dark starts, just easy to do. Every plane supports the quick start, which is again R1 and down on the D-pad. Let's say you finished up the flight. If you hold R1 and hold down on the D-pad, that's also the quick shutdown. So, tapping R1 and down on the D-pad to start, and then holding R1 and down on the D-pad to shut it down. And then for those of you all about float planes or water planes in general, R1 and right on the D-pad will engage the water rudders. And then of course, same thing, we'll disengage them and raise them back up. And alright everybody, that's everything for the R1 plus other button combination. Now we can move on to L1. And to start things off, one of my favorite things about the PlayStation version is L1 and left click, which I'll just show you what that means. That, as you can see on the screen, turns on the gyroscope mode, which is how I've been flying 100% of the time now in the sim. So instead of using the analog sticks, or the left analog stick to fly, you're using the motion controls on the DualSense controller to fly the aircraft. It's awesome. And then I noticed on the ground, shifting the controller left and right is actually rudder control, so you can taxi with that. But of course, right is a right bank, left is a left bank, bringing it back is raising the nose up, and then pushing it down is nose down. And it's just, it makes the experience almost feel like you're using a flight stick. So highly recommend trying this out when you do get into the sim, because it's it's such an awesome way to fly. And then of course, if you're not interested in using it and you're wanting to do something else in the plane, you can just hit L1 and left click stick to disengage it, and then you're back to flying with just the analog stick. The other great thing too is you'll notice, like let's say where the nose is down here, and we open the cursor with R1 and left click. Of course now it doesn't do it. Most of the time the plane is kind of doing its own autopilot unless they changed it in the latest build. But sometimes doing this without gyroscope can be a bit of a pain. You also don't have control over the aircraft. So with gyroscope mode, you can see we're still flying around like normal. But with cursor mode, we're also still flying around normally. So we're not locked out of the flight controls when we go into cursor mode, which is really handy. Because I mean, if you're trying to do some stuff with ATC, let's say you open that up, or if you want to open up the EFB, check your flight plan, you don't have to worry about the plane crashing or going off course because you still have full control. So just another added bonus of flying with the gyroscope. This next one we've already done, it's L1 and circle, which this is to enter and exit an aircraft, which can only be done when the plane is stationary. So no, you cannot jump out of the aircraft while you're flying it. So again, that's L1 and circle. Next up we have L1 and up on the D-pad, which these are quick views. So if you're not wanting to move it yourself, this is how you can move it around. And then L1 down on the D-pad, you will go through those menus or those camera angles back, but then these will go close to the instruments, which is pretty handy for trying to look at something specific and get around the cockpit with ease. And then also with the D-pad we have hold L1 and then right to do quick view right. Let go of it, it'll reset, and then left and L1 you do quick view left. And then if you're ever wanting to move around the cabin yourself, you hold L1, and then with the left stick you can see we're moving the camera forward, left, back, and right. And then just treat it like an FPS game. Right stick is to move the camera around, left stick to move around. And then you use the left trigger to lower the camera, and the right trigger to raise the camera, which not even if you're moving around, that's really handy, because some planes have a really low default camera angle. This one doesn't, it's fine, but if you ever need to raise it, you can just hold L1 and then right trigger, and then if it's too high, you can lower it with the left trigger. So again, holding L1 goes into basically a walk around mode with the left stick to move around, the right stick to look around, and then the triggers to lower and raise the camera angle. And there we go, folks. That is all the keybinds on the DualSense controller. I really hope you guys ended up finding this pretty informative. Again, I'll leave my little cheat sheet in the description, so if you want to save it, that way you're ready to go when the sim launches. You'll have a nice quick access page of all the buttons that we use today. And yeah, so with that being said, thank you guys for the continued support. Again, I hope you guys found this useful. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I will talk to you guys next time. See ya.